within the community of color, there
Right.
are a lot of aspects that take place when it comes to our mental health and our ability to succeed.
Yeah.
That definitely has to do with the economy, with our environment. We're not
Hmm.
always raised the way that white men in particular are raised,
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
feel like they can do everything. They feel like they're
Take on the
invincible.
world.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have to find that within ourselves. And sometimes the world
Hmm.
does not reflect that to us.
Welcome to Fortune Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Elijah. Today we have a wonderful, wonderful guest, and her story is going to inspire you. Everybody, please welcome Tatyana Sapp. Hey,
Hi.
Tatyana.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing so well. So happy to have you on the show today.
I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to be here.
I love that. Where are you tuning in from?
I am in Moreno Valley, California, the lovely Inland
Yay.
Empire.
So, how do we know each other for the people that's listening?
Ooh, we met in LA. We met at
Yes.
the LA Homecoming
Hmm.
event. Yeah, that was a fun night.
It was such a fun night. And it's funny, we only like interacted a few times, but already I just knew that you were such a bright light and we kind of like clung to each other a little bit. So,
Oh
love
yes.
that.
Oh yes. I love being around groups of people who like to dance and sing and be a good time, and that's exactly how we met.
That's exactly how it is. So, taking it back to the very beginning, what did you want to be growing up?
Wow, okay. What did I want to be growing up?
Hmm.
I I wanted to be Janet Jackson growing
I
up.
know that's
I
right.
like yeah, I like to sing, I like to dance. But I did it all in my head most of the time. It was kind of like you would watch the music video and you're like, yeah, I could do that, but you didn't really try. That was me. So younger years, I definitely wanted to be in entertainment. As I got older, I thought that I wanted to be a psychologist or be a therapist. And then I realized, as much as I love people, and now what I do is still very much interaction with people, I
Hmm.
realized I didn't want to hear everybody's problems. And
Yeah.
and and that was where I was like, okay, so maybe a therapist isn't for me. But yeah, those were the two things that I wanted to be growing up.
I love that. And where were you born and raised?
Oh, nice. I was born in San Diego, and then
Okay.
I moved, and I've been raised in Moreno Valley since I was 8 years
Okay.
old.
Love that. And how was that like for you? Did you have any siblings? Like, how did your household look like?
I have a sister. We are 12 years apart.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's myself, my parents, and then my younger sister. So I grew
Love
up,
that.
we're a biracial household, but yeah, I grew
Okay.
up with a nice little group of four, the four of us.
Aw. Seems so fun. And were they like, was your family creative too? Like, what did your parents do for a living?
Wow, my parents actually met both working at the same credit union.
Okay. I love
Yeah,
that.
so my dad's always been in finance. He's dabbled in other things, but mainly in finance, from auto finance to underwriting to being in real estate and mortgage loans. My mom actually got into banking, and she did banking for a long period of time. Now she does payroll for Sherwin Williams. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. I'm always curious to ask, especially like when I talk to people that are so creative. I'm like, was it your family? Were they into anything creative or how did that come to be? So I love that.
I'm trying to think. I mean, they were the creative, like, we would all sing in the house. Like, we were all very
Okay.
goofy and be willing to, make a fool of ourselves in our nice little bubble. um, my mom, a little tone deaf, but she liked to sing too.
Okay.
So I definitely got the encouragement to be artsy and creative from my family.
It's so funny. I love that. And I love that even with them being in finance, they can still encourage creativity and like still allow that to grow within you.
Yes. Yes.
So, kind of just taking like just like your journey, and like you wanted to be Janet Jackson, and then maybe that changed a little bit. When did that change? Was that in high school, or like how did things switch for you?
Well, it all started right after high school. um, so, how everything came to be, I got accepted to colleges out of state, and I
Okay.
don't like the snow. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to go to these schools because
Okay.
I'm not going to be in the snow. And my dad at the time was back in the mortgage industry, and it actually started off with, hey, just help me out during the summer. Let me teach you, how to do, certain aspects within this business.
Mhm.
And the rest is
Mhm.
honestly history. I ended up really liking it to the point
Okay.
where I got my real estate license, then I got my mortgage license.
Mhm.
Now we are a team. Now we're our own business, and now he's let me take charge, and I'm really, running our business with him, but taking the lead on everything.
I love that. And did you feel, because now it's like you went straight from high school to being a career and a businesswoman, did you feel any pressure from like your classmates or maybe any other family members to go to college, or were they just
Oh
completely
yeah.
supportive? Okay, so
Oh
what
yeah.
was that
No.
like? Because I know there's a lot of people who, times are changing. Maybe a 4-year college is not conducive for everyone, and maybe they're feeling pressure. So maybe you can tell me how that was for you.
um wow. You know what? It is, I still believe that having a college education is important. So at some point I do have every intention of going to school and getting a degree. But I learned very quickly that it's not needed if you want to be successful in an industry like the industry that I'm in. If
It's
you're
true.
willing to get the education that you need, you don't need to necessarily go to college to get it. Um, but I definitely got a lot for over from 18 till now of, so when are you going back to school? Or people who would forget that I wasn't
Mm,
in school. So how's school going for you? And
right.
for us, we actually, even though I don't have the college education, in
Hmm.
real estate and in the mortgage industry, we're still required to get education annually.
Mm,
So
okay.
I've never been outside of learning, and I am someone who takes it upon myself to read, to research, to
Hmm.
look up things. Um, but it's a fine balance, because I think just as we're black women, we're still educated women, so sometimes
Yes.
we
Yes.
feel like we have to prove to people that we know what we're talking about and that we are
It's
educated.
true.
And for me, that part of not having the college background of like, well, I went to this and this school, it makes
Hmm.
it makes me have to make sure that I speak in a way where people understand, including my
Right.
family, so that they're not thinking, oh, well, look at where you're lacking because you didn't get the college education.
Right. Right. And I've experienced that myself. For me, I feel like it's a little bit different. I went straight into school and then I did my master's. And sometimes, like, even without it, like, you can have conversations with people. But then when you bring that up, it's like all of a sudden, like, oh, like a different kind of respect, especially in different, like, racial spaces. So I like
Yeah.
that you brought up that point and that kind of added thing, because that does affect the Black community. And I noticed that, like, Black women tend to be some of the highest educated, some self taught, some through schooling. So it's crazy that no matter how much success you might find today, you still feel the need to eventually go back to school just to kind of like validate, a little bit in the
Just to say I
public
did,
eye.
just to say I have it, just to be like, no, I did go to school, I did get a degree.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's kind of a little crazy, like as a side note, because like you hear of all these people, like, okay, like people that went from like high school and are now multi-million and multi-billionaires. Maybe they're a white man or however, but it's never questioned. It's like, wow, what a genius. Like he's such a,
hmm
like such a spearheader. He like went forth. So it's interesting to have that dynamic. And I know that that wasn't an easy experience for you, having to always like have people constantly ask you, but as we see now.
yeah, yeah. And we said it off camera. I know a lot of people who got the college education, got their degrees, and they're not even
Hmm.
working in the same field that they got their degree in.
Right.
So I
It's so
think that
true.
just kind of goes to show that, you're allowed to pivot, you're allowed to change your mind.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
just because you have a degree doesn't mean that you're guaranteed success in a certain industry.
It's so true. And that's partly why we even have this podcast, because there's a lot of people who have finished school and they're struggling. And maybe there's not like, career advisors, or maybe there's not direct placement into jobs. So thank you even for highlighting that. So with that, were you always when you went straight into business, is that the only thing that you have done is just like your business, or have you tried other things on the side in terms of like professionally, or how did that look like for you? Like you hopped in and you knew exactly what it was, or what was that like?
Wow. It's been a learning process. I mean, I started off as an apprentice slash assistant. And I started off with my real estate license first. So definitely one thing I'm grateful for is that I had my dad with me throughout the whole thing. So a lot of it was that I didn't have to figure out everything on my own. Um, but having my real estate license, I could have gone over to just work directly in on the real estate aspect of the industry. I realized that I don't really like to show people houses. I would rather work on the numbers. Yeah, just the patience that it takes. I have so much respect for them, but I'd rather
Yeah.
work on the numbers. I'd rather know people that way versus having to
Yes.
open doors for houses. Um, I had a period of time where I actually worked in a different aspect of the business. I worked in
Okay.
the office as a processor, so I got to learn a
Okay.
little bit more about the pushing files around side of the business of getting the file turned in and getting it the loan funded that way
Mhm.
versus how I do it where I'm dealing directly with the clients. I'm dealing with the different
Mhm.
parties that are involved in communicating with them what our process is. Um, on another side, during the pandemic, I actually ran a crochet business.
Ooh.
It was a nice hobby that people said like, "Hey, I want to buy," and it was very labor intensive. And I said, "Yeah, no. I'd
Okay.
rather do what I'm doing right now. I'd rather keep doing it."
Yes.
But it was a nice little, creative break, being able to deal with clients all day and then be able to crochet in the evening time and just do my hobby, just get paid a little bit for it for a period of time. It was nice.
Got it.
Yes, and then I also have a poetry book out that I self-published.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I need you to, okay, you just said so many amazing things. One, I applaud you for being such a perfect balance between like the analytical, the numbers, and the creative side. I think that's such an amazing mix to have. Can you talk a little bit about your poetry book and like how that came to be and when you published it?
Oh, okay. Yes, I can.
Please.
Um, it's Poetry is one of those things that I like to do. I was always writing, but I didn't always
Hmm.
feel confident enough to share with people.
Okay.
Um, and I just kind of had that period of time where it was like, when you feel like you should do something creative. I felt like I should do the book that I thought I wanted to do. And then I want to say it took about 9 months of actually getting it together, slowly but surely. I took my time. It wasn't my main priority in life at that time, but I just started to collect the pieces that I had already written, pieces that I had written during that time, from losses that happened in my life to just different things that I started to realize through therapy. So we can also thank therapy for my poetry book. Um, and Yeah, after a certain point, I got to where the book felt like it was finished, and I started to roll out actually publishing the book, which I think when people want to do something creative, we kind of psych ourselves out with all the other aspects of it. Like we tell ourselves it's more detailed than it really is. We're like, oh, I can't really do it because, then I got to worry about copyright and I have to worry about
Right.
how it's going to be printed. But
Hmm.
it ended up being a fairly simple process, a little bit of trial and error, just learning what you needed to have done. But it was a fairly simple process to do. And everything kind of just fell into place from finding someone to illustrate the cover to just having it all kind of format and flow the way that I wanted to.
I love that. I love that. And being that you were in a different field, was the process of, writing a book and then publishing it, was it seamless, or did you run into any obstacles that might have kind of like maybe discouraged you from going forward and publishing it?
Um, I would say that's a two-part
Okay.
answer, because
Okay.
was it a seamless process? On one side, yes, because it was just
Okay.
simply me doing something creative. I didn't really think, when I said that I wanted to write the book, all I thought was, well, you wanted to write the book. So when I
Right.
had the first draft and it was horrible, first draft was horrible, I said, well, I wrote the book. I did what I said I was going to do. So then deciding to revisit it a few months later and say, okay, well, let's make it better. Let's just do this, see it all the way through. It wasn't necessarily um, with the thought in mind of other people seeing and receiving it. It
Hmm.
was, this is a creative
Okay.
project for me. This is what I'm doing in my free time. And that's all that it is. So then now the question about the seamless process, how it can be a no, was the part of I wasn't doing it for monetary value. So
Got
a
it.
certain part of me was like, am I wasting my time because I don't have intentions of this making me, a bunch of money. I don't have intentions
Yeah.
of this being something. So am I wasting my time? The self-doubt kicked in, because it's
Got
like
it.
you're doing something for you, but should your time be spent doing that, was the
Right.
question that kind of came up. Overall, it ended up just being something that I would pick up when I felt like picking it up. So,
Hmm.
it got finished in its own time, and it's here and people still buy it and people still like it. So, overall, I'm glad that I did do the process either way.
Me too. And one thing I'll highlight about you that you haven't really touched on at all is that you are multi talented. I want you to kind of get into more about yourself, because I feel like you're not even going into all the creative, like genius that you are. I know that you dance, you sing, you do so many other things. So, can you like get into that just a little bit? And I'd like to see how that kind of ties in with your profession, because it seems like you have the business side, but you always like find a way to make a creative outlet.
Yeah, that all boils down to mental health. Um,
Okay. I
so
see.
growing up, I loved to sing and dance.
Mhm.
Growing up, I actually had those, like, when you think you wanted to take a dance class and then you take the dance class and it wasn't what you thought it was. That was
Yeah.
my experience growing
Okay.
up. I always remember my first dance class. I was 12 years old. And, when you get to 13, then you get to take the 13 to 16 dance class. Well, I was 12, so I couldn't take that class. So we signed up for a summer dance class. And when I get there, it was all little kids. So obviously my parents had already paid. So when I was like, oh, well, I don't want to go, I don't want to go anymore. They're like, no, you're going to go. It
Yeah.
ended up turning into the studio did all the performing arts.
Mm.
So they actually invited me to go back and to join their small competition team. So I was
Mhm.
able to do the dance and the song and all the fun things that I wanted right before going into high school, where I got to sing and dance with people my age. So I was the choir girl, I was a dance girl for a few years. Um, and then I took a long break, because we
Mhm.
all have the misconception that when we're focusing on our money, that nothing else
Mm.
matters. And I woke up one day and I was like, I'm really not happy.
Mm.
And I had to find what made me happy. And that was having the balance between work and then also play, and being able to do
Yeah.
things that are creative that stimulate my mind in that way.
Got it.
It also has helped flow into my business, because
Okay.
we need to be creative when it comes to marketing. Sometimes we need to
Yes.
be creative when it comes to communicating with people and how we get people to understand what we're saying, how we get people to
Mhm.
listen in the first place.
Mhm.
And it's helped with my patience. I think it's definitely helped
Got
with
it.
understanding people, being able to recognize, when I get anxious, I play soaking
Mm.
music or meditation music, or, I'm learning to
Right.
catch those behaviors within myself. So when I'm talking to a client and I start to hear the cues of, hey, I think they may be anxious too, it's helped me
Mm.
with being able to resonate with them more, and not
Mm.
necessarily move past their emotion, instead address it so that they can feel calm in their own process when it comes to what I do for my business.
I love that. And I kind of like your approach to creativity because it's not just like, a form of self expression, but it's also helping you to relate to other people.
Yeah.
When did you
Yeah,
have
I
that
think
realization? Because I think that's super deep.
therapy.
Okay.
So that would
Okay.
be, yeah, therapy is a big thing for me. So probably
Yes.
about 3 years ago of just learning
Okay.
a little bit more about myself helped me
Mm-hmm.
begin to understand more about other people. And it helped me kind of
Mm.
just accept that, hey, you may not always feel like you're doing a great job at everything that you do, especially creatively, because
Right.
again, that's something that I do for my own mental health. It's something that I do for fun, but
Mm-hmm.
to encourage myself to do it anyways, because it helps me feel
Mm.
better doing and serving people the way that I actually am serving them within my business.
Got it. And I know you kind of mentioned mental health, and I know a little bit just like from off camera that you've kind of dealt with that. Are you able to kind of just like explain to people like what you've dealt with and how that's looked like for you?
Mental health, yes.
Yay. I know.
um, yes. So I do have anxiety and depression. I actually do come from a family history of mental illness. So
Okay.
mental health has been, since a young age, something that I had to kind of learn to understand and learn to process and accept. Um,
Mhm.
I think at some point we all have to accept that we still want to live lives that are full, that are joyous, that we love. And that means that we have to honor and accept that different times we're not going to feel our best, but not allow for that to stop us from still enjoying the good times and the good
Life.
experiences that we have.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Not to stop us from enjoying life or having a successful business or being a business owner, or
Yeah.
being in service. I've definitely younger years had the doubt of like, well, can I actually run a business, run my life, because I have these different mental issues or health
Right.
problems that come up? Is it something that's going to stop me from living and having good experiences? And over time, just the maturity of respecting that, no, but also you have to honor how you feel. And some days, 100% of you is 50% of what you would give on a good day. And that
Yeah.
too is okay, as long as you are making sure you get what you need to get done, and ask
Yes.
for help. Ask for help.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. And how was that like for you kind of growing up? Because I know like it might be difficult when you have like family experiencing it and then when you're young, because your sister and you, I think you said you're 12 years apart. So it's
Mhm.
one of the things where it's like, how, like, you were mostly on your own at that time. So how were you able to kind of like deal with that with mental health not being such a big thing as it is today, basically?
Ooh, dealing with mental health growing up, I would definitely say was where the creativity came in, where
Okay.
I learned that my outlets for how I feel when I don't necessarily know how to express myself is through writing or through singing, through dancing. Um, it it was obviously, like you said, it's not something that's so commonly talked about today, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
this is a part of our human experience and people understand it.
Right.
So even at a younger age, I understood those things, but I didn't fully understand them the way that I do now. So it was more
Mm-hmm.
so just learning how to process the emotion versus acknowledging what the emotions were. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that that too is okay. Being able to
Got
say, hey,
it.
I just don't feel good today, so I'm going to do something that helps make me feel good, is
Mhm.
still a good thing. You don't have to like put a name to it every single time. This is
It's
depression. This is
true.
anxiety. You know, your heart is racing. Go do something that makes you feel a little bit better.
Mhm. And I like that there's one, video that you posted on social media, and you're like, "Some of you guys might feel like you're down, but you might just need to get fresh air, touch some grass, take a
Sometimes you
walk."
just gotta go
So
touch some air. Yes. Yes.
so
Half
I
of the
like that.
time, half of the time when I feel like my world is imploding, even these last couple of weeks with a few of my
Mhm.
clients, it's been just that one thing after another problem.
Mhm.
And one thing that I guess we can also add to this for the younger people who want to get into
Mhm.
business, sometimes you're going to lose business. Sometimes a client is going to
Yeah.
decide they just don't want to work with you anymore, and you have to
Mm.
be okay with it. that happened this past
Mm.
week. So I had
Okay.
delays. I had a client who didn't want to work with me anymore. I had new clients that were coming in, and having to balance all of the different things of, okay, now I'm feeling anxious because
Right.
certain things are happening, but then there's the joy of having new clients, but then there's also the work that has to be done to make sure that
Okay.
the delays get processed through and worked through.
Mhm.
um, I think that's where that creative part loops in there, where it's like, okay, sit down, do something that makes you feel a little better, so that when you go pick up your work again, you're able to do it to a better capacity than you were doing it before you sat down and took the break from it.
Right. And it also like kind of leads to a sense of joy instead of dread because sometimes you can focus on work, work, work without having those things that make you fulfilled, be it that creativity, writing, dancing, singing, taking a walk, sports, hobbies. So I like that you were able to do that. One other question I kind of have, kind of just related to the issue for some people to understand as well, and including myself to see how it expresses itself in different people. Sometimes, I have my own moments, though I don't think it's like yet clinical. Do you know like can you feel when like maybe a depressive episode is coming up, or does it kind of hit you out of nowhere?
No, it's kind of my anxiety and depression go in like a cycle. So it'll
Okay.
go with, certain things are happening within my life that are more
Okay.
stressful. I start to feel anxious. Then, if I'm not keeping my process the same, doing my routine,
Mhm.
doing things doing my business the right way and doing my personal life the right way, then I'll flow into the depression part. Something bad's gonna happen.
Okay.
Something bad's gonna happen,
Got
and
it.
then it flows into now I'm anxious again because something bad does happen. So it kind of
Mm.
flows into a little bit of a cycle for me. I am better now at being able to notice it and at least acknowledge that it's
Okay.
happening, instead of I'm full blown, can't get out of bed, and I don't know what's wrong. At that point,
Okay.
I at least had the idea of, hey, okay, things are getting anxious in my life right now, and I'm able to start
Mhm.
doing that process of like, okay, let me do something that's going to make me feel a little bit better.
Got it. And last question on this for other people who may be in business or like working a 9 to 5 that could be super demanding and they also go through anxiety and depression. Like, is there any frameworks or any advice that you would give them? Like, okay, like if you feel this coming on, like this is what advice I would give to you that's worked for me.
I would say, get into a routine, a good morning routine. I'm not gonna lie, that evening routine I can't
Mhm.
do right now. But that morning
Yeah.
routine, I have a morning routine. Every single morning I do the same thing.
Hmm.
That routine really
Hmm.
does help because those days when you don't want to get out of bed, you can tell yourself, well,
Yeah.
let me at least just do these 5 things that I normally do every single morning. Let me just at least do that. I can get back in bed after I do those 5 things. And
Right.
that has really helped me personally when it comes to
Mm.
those days when I don't feel well, when I don't want to get out of
Hmm.
bed. I'll at
Hmm.
least get up and do that. Yeah, yeah. Another thing that really helps me different periods of time is like a 30-day challenge. So I did one of like the 30 days of gratitude. I am doing one for myself, 30 days of self affirmations. So I'm like, you are kind, you are gracious, you deserve to be successful. Like every day I'm writing something to myself that just whatever doubt I have that day, I'm rewriting it to affirm that that is actually something I'm capable of. Um,
Yes.
I did one of the seasons. I did a 8 week workout challenge. Those
Ooh.
type of things. Yeah, yeah. So those things have definitely helped in those seasons of like you got to switch it up. You got to give yourself something to look forward to. So when I would do
Hmm.
those, it's like, well, I get to look forward to doing something that's not necessarily a part of my regular everyday routine, but also
Hmm.
commit to doing it. So I can get my
Mm.
mind off of all the things that are causing me to feel the way that I'm feeling.
I like that. So it's like having a sense of like regularity or something to look forward to can be something that's grounding for you.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Ooh, I need to incorporate that into my life because I do feel like that when the times where I do feel anxiety setting in, it's because every day is like up in the air. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what to expect. And that can create anxiety. So I think for me to having like a morning routine, I feel you on that night routine. It's not easy, but at least waking up and having those things that I know I do every single day, it helps me to be grounded and it helps me to start the day feeling like at least I have one win. Like if I don't do anything else today, at least I got up, made my bed,
Yes,
maybe worked out, had a healthy breakfast.
exactly.
So I love that.
Exactly.
You are
Yeah.
too wise and too healed. Like I know it's like life experiences and therapy, but kind of like with this, maybe what's one piece of advice you wish you could have given to your younger self?
It would definitely be to be more fearless,
Okay,
especially within my business. I think
got it.
that, everything works in God's timing, but I
Mm-hmm.
also know that I held myself back.
Okay,
Um, I am about 3 years into having my loan officer mortgage license. I probably could have I
congratulations.
thank you, but I could have gotten that maybe like 3, 4, 5 years before that. I could have done the process a little bit faster,
Okay.
but that's where some of that like lack of self confidence, where um, love working with my dad, very encouraging
Mm-hmm.
person, and he knows
Mm-hmm.
what he's doing. And it's always like if I mess up, when I was younger, especially if I mess up, he'd be the one to take the call and say he messed up.
Oh,
And
love
for
that.
me, it was not feeling confident enough to take on that type of responsibility. When
Mm-hmm.
I was in those younger 20s, I was like, I can't do that. Look at me
Mm-hmm.
mess up. I can't be the one to take responsibility for it. What do you mean?
Right. When there's
So,
clients involved, especially.
yes, yes. So, for me, it would definitely just be to tell my younger self, like, be more fearless. It's okay to make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes, but it's also okay to allow those mistakes to help you grow.
Right.
And then that's all that we are. We are just an accumulation of mistakes that we've grown from.
And really that's life. And kind of speaking to like the business side of it now, like how is that working with family? Because I know there's a lot of people that actually have business, like family owned business that they kind of keep and they continue, and like maybe the parents like pass the baton later on. So how is that balance for you of like working so close knit? Like at least with coworkers you could be like, see ya next week, but I know that could be an interesting thing when it's
you
family. So how
know,
does that look like?
yeah, it's the part of living and working with a family member that you're just like, um, as I've gotten older, I want to say that the best thing has just sometimes been boundaries, and
Okay.
also giving ourselves time to talk about personal. And this is something my dad
Mm,
actually put into place. He's like,
okay.
especially the mental health aspect. So he's actually the
Right.
one that's like, if you're having a low mental health day, like we need to make my pocket of time to do and talk about that so that it's not
Okay.
going into the actual business meeting that we need to have, because we still also
Okay.
need to get the business part done.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's been a learning process because I started working with my dad at 17. So I was still
Okay.
a kid. And
Yeah.
having to grow as a woman, having to grow as an adult while also doing business with my dad, it caused a level of vulnerability. I would consider myself, even though I'm very open when it comes to talking, I'm also still somewhat of a private person. So it made it where I had to still be open about what's going on in my personal life with my dad, so that wasn't affecting what was going on within our business life. So it's not like something's wrong. Is it because of a client? No, it's because a boy broke my heart. That's what's
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
Having to be transparent about that. Um, yeah, I don't know if it was something that he planned on having,
Mm-hmm.
actually I do know because me and my dad have talked about this. When he got
Okay.
back into the real estate industry, he actually did mortgage finance for a period of time, went into auto finance right before the recession. And then my senior years of high school, he got back into mortgage finance and started
Okay.
doing real estate. So he went back to that, and we've been doing it since I graduated high school together. It wasn't something that he anticipated that I would like and get into, but when he saw that it was something that I could do, it was like okay, this is someone that I will be passing the baton to. I want this
Okay.
business to keep going. And I think one of the good everything's about meshing well with people, because there's
It's
some
true.
people maybe you shouldn't go into business with your dad. But I can say that our business is one where when I have doubt, he's somebody that will reassure me. So those mental
Mm,
health periods of time that I have, I would say that they're not as bad as they could be, because there's someone within my business that's not going to allow for me to fail. And not
I
everybody
love
has
that.
that. And whether you work with family or not, you got to have a coworker, a business partner, and a coach, somebody who's gonna like not let you fail.
Right. And I think that is like a major key just listening to that because, there's a lot of people who deal with mental health issues. Even if you don't like have it clinically, it's really hard nowadays just to exist as a human being. And I think just hearing your story is showing the importance of having a business partner, having somebody that you can turn to kind of keep you going. And like if you're having maybe a down day, he can be at 100% and then vice versa.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that he actually tells to me. He's like, okay, I know, I because sometimes again, I'm like, I'm fine, and he's like, you're not fine, and I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I am, but we're
Oh,
still girls, okay? We're still women.
right.
We still do what women do, so it's like, no, just leave me
It's so
alone.
true.
So there's definitely been periods of time where he's like, I can tell you're not 100%, and that's okay, because you may be 50, and I'll carry the other 50 for you. And that's something that I definitely don't think everybody gets to experience,
Right.
especially when we try to do entrepreneurship by
Mhm.
ourselves.
Right.
Or we try to get into a career that not a lot of people who look like us are a part of,
Right.
or we try
Right.
to, we're breaking that. I have so much respect for people of color who get into industries where they're the minority, because
Yeah.
it's hard to be alone in an industry. It's the curly hair loan officer where I'm
Mhm.
like, is my
Mhm.
hair appropriate? If I'm gonna meet
Wow.
with a client, is it that,
Right.
are they going to see I have tattoos? Are they gonna perceive
Mhm.
me as a professional or not? So being
Mhm.
able to have someone, at least someone that's able to hold you accountable within that aspect of your life, is beneficial. It's something that I would recommend everyone have, whether it be a
Right.
coworker, even just a friend who's in, doesn't even have to be the same industry, but someone who's going to hold you accountable. So you can say, hey, it's not a great day. I just need a little pick me up. Can you just, remind
Mhm.
me that I'm doing a good job within my work, or remind me that I'm doing a good
Mm.
job within my personal life? Um,
Mhm.
Girl. And then I think we could also just make the note. There are within the community of color, there
Right.
are a lot of aspects that take place when it comes to our mental health and our ability to succeed,
Yeah.
that definitely has to do with the economy, with our environment. We're not
Mhm.
always raised the way that white men in particular are raised,
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
feel like they can do everything, they feel like they're
Take on the
invincible.
world.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have to find that within ourselves. And sometimes the world
Mhm.
does not reflect that to us.
It's
We may
true.
get taught that when we're growing up, you can do anything that you want to do. You are beautiful, you're strong, you're kind. But then we go out in the world and it's not reflected back to us
Mm.
in the
It's
same
so
way.
true.
And I think that that has to be brought up, because we have to remind ourselves to give ourselves grace, and to give
Mhm.
ourselves ease while we're still fighting to be successful, and fighting to have our voices be heard in spaces that don't always want to hear us.
Right. Wow, you dropped so many gems. Like,
I was like, it
I'm
came in my
like,
mind, and I was like, I have to make sure that we talk about that, especially because I know
yes.
you want to target people to hear this, that are coming out of college, that are wanting to get into a
Mhm.
career field, or wanting to
Mhm.
find their career field. Um, I think also sometimes we think, well, if I do this thing, I'm just going to be automatically successful, and unfortunately, we
Mm.
we have to learn that lesson of, it's not always that easeful for us, but
It's
that doesn't
so
mean that we
true.
can't still live a life of ease while we're still
Mhm.
working through those aspects of our professional lives.
I love that. And it's definitely a balance because sometimes, like, the workplace can beat that out of you. I talked about it even in like previous episodes where it's like, when I was younger, I felt so invincible because my parents, they made sure like, Jessica, you can do anything. You can be a scholar. You can do like, and they truly believed that. And gender, like there was no gender inequality, like equally, like, they would tell my brother the same thing as they would tell me. It wasn't until like onto the workplace, like working with like, different people from different generations, especially, and then like from different racial backgrounds. And I was like, wow, like, I'm not used to seeing this opposition. And I think it's a fine line between encouraging yourself to like keep going and keep being positive, and then also to not being like, not really victim mentality, but like, and I don't want to call it that because sometimes you are actually targeted at workplace, but I think it's like a constant struggle to keep my light, like to keep that thing that keeps me going. And I think that's something that's unique to people of color community. One of my coworkers, she was of Latin descent, and there's times where she would see me kind of go through injustice at my workplace, and she would be like, "Don't let these people see you cry. It's okay. You can like talk to me afterwards, but like maintain your composure." So I think sometimes we have like added pressure as people of color. I think about former President Barack Obama, like very like composed. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And no
Yes.
matter like how much attack or like lies about his birthplace or just random things, he always had to kind of be composed. And I think that's something that just kind of needs to be said. Like, keep your light, find community in maybe like people outside of your workplace, or like people, a few select people that you can trust, so that you can have an outlet, but still, show up. Because whether we like it or not, we are a representation for almost everyone in our community, even though we're not a monolith. There's literally Black
Mhm.
people, melanated people all around the world from different backgrounds, just like any other race. But I think kind of keeping that in mind and knowing that you can do anything, you can really do anything, and try and
Yes.
find that balance.
Yes. I remember it was a Juneteenth special a few years back. And funny enough,
Mm-hmm.
right after the statement got made, it was like a spoken word piece. The power
Mm-hmm.
cut out at my home. But the
Wow.
first line said, "You will be someone's ancestor one day. Act accordingly."
Wow.
And literally
Wow.
right after that, the power cut out. And I was like, what happened? I was like, wait, I wanted
Mic
to hear the
drop.
rest of this. Yeah. So sometimes it's also like keeping that
Wow.
in mind, like your story is going to be told to somebody. So
Right.
what type of story do you want them to hear? Do you want them to hear that you
Mm.
gave up on your dreams and aspirations? Do you want them to hear that you learned how to pivot when things weren't working well? Do you want them to
Mm-hmm.
hear that you were really successful in a certain aspect of your life? Do you want them to
Mm-hmm.
hear that you were well balanced? That you
Right.
were that you especially as women, there's
Right.
a lot of the having to do it all. And I have a lot
Yeah.
of friends who are moms now, so
Yeah.
I get to learn vicariously through them of that part of, having their work life, having to balance a kid, having to balance a relationship, not just a relationship with a spouse or a boyfriend, but also the relationship with their friends, the relationship with themselves. Um, yeah, so that's definitely something like on the personal side I try to keep in mind of like, you know, 20, 30 years from now, are you going to be happy with 30-year-old Tati and the things that she's doing for herself right now? Whether, and take aside the idea of what financial success looks like or business success looks like, are you going to be happy with your life? Because if the business doesn't go well, you can go do something else. But are you going to just be overall happy with everything that you do and how you feel about yourself? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes. And I love that you said that, even kind of taking it to like the personal side. I remember when I was in college, there was a film producer that came on, and they were talking about, I believe it was Sherry Lansing. So she's a successful like producer. She's greenlit so many different films. And I wanted to go to that talk so much because I'm like, oh, there's a woman that like has it all and stuff like that. But one thing that she did say is like, remember that you, remember with whatever you choose to invest your time in, be it your career, be it even your like personal life, that like 30, 40, 50 years from now, you can't go back to the past to change that. So if you're only focused on your career and you forget about family, know that yes, you might be very successful, but if you're looking for grandchildren, like a warm, happy family, that might be missing. So don't forget to kind of prioritize both. And then even
Yeah.
on our conversation as people of color, asking for help, girl, asking for help. I don't know what it is for me. People have their own complexes. For me, I can say I'm sorry. I can, like, help other people. I can be humble, but asking for help, it's like,
It is the
it's
hardest
like,
thing.
I hate it
Asking
so.
for help Asking for help is the hardest thing, and I have a business partner, and that business
Right.
partner is my dad. Do you think my dad's
Right.
gonna say no to helping me? But I
No.
will sit there by myself and waste hours of my time trying to do it
Right.
all by myself, and he'll be like, "Do you need help?" No, I don't need help.
Hmm.
I don't need help until I really need help. But
Hmm.
asking for help really does help save you time. It helps you be more effective.
Right.
If we're talking about the business aspect, it helps you be more time
Yes.
effective within your business. It helps you get more done. On the personal side, it just helps you live a less stressful life. Asking someone to help
It's
you
true.
sometimes, can you throw that load in the dryer for me, please? Can I just sit down for 5 seconds? Like,
Yes.
it just helps you live a little bit more of an easeful life. But I think that also goes to making sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who will help, people
It's
that you're
true.
willing to help, but people that will help you in return, that, you're both equally filling each other's cups.
Right. And it's kind of like that quote, like, if you want to go fast, do it by yourself. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think as I've kind of grown, I'm learning to not be afraid to be a novice, and also to not be afraid to ask for help, because you'll be surprised at how many people, maybe not everybody, but there'll be a select few that be like, yes, I'd love to help you, or that's so cool. Like, this is my experience. So kind of having that humility and remembering that we're a community, like we can all eat. It's not like life is not a
Hmm.
zero sum game. We can all be together. And hearing, the more I talk with you and like even other people, I'm like, wow, there's a thread that kind of connects everybody together. We're not as different as we all think.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I tell my sister that. I tell my sister, like, I am that person that, like, will walk into the coffee shop and just make friends with somebody next to me. I went
Yes.
earlier this month. We went to Dreamville Fest. I spent a week out in the South. I was in Atlanta for a few days. I road tripped with some people to North Carolina. I went to Dreamville Fest with a friend of mine. And the first morning, we go to Waffle House. And I hear this couple, they're asking a couple that was leaving the table, like, yeah, is Nikki serving right here? And the lady's like, yeah, Nikki's serving right here. This country, just imagine the accents. I'm not going to try to do the accents, but they're like, yeah, Nikki's serving right here. And they're like, okay. So they sit over there, and then the person comes and they're like, yeah, where do you guys want to sit? Over on the booth over here? And I said, I want to sit over here where Nikki is. And I look over and I said, I don't know who Nikki is, but I want to sit with y'all. You know who Nikki is, which means that she's
Right.
good.
Yes.
We ended up having a whole conversation. They're telling me their whole life story, like high school sweethearts, and they went to South
Oh,
Carolina to get married one day when in their 20s, and came back, and they've been together ever since. Ended up paying for our breakfast. I didn't even anticipate that was going to happen,
that's
but
so
I
sweet.
know, I know. But sweetest conversation. We loved Nikki. Nikki was a great personality as a server. I'm mad we didn't go back, like, while I was in North Carolina, but I'm gonna come back just to see her. Okay. But
Shout out, Nikki.
yeah. Just learning that, talking to people helps you understand yourself and helps people understand you. And on the business side, that's the nice personal story. But on the business side, what you said about being a novice, you ask somebody who's higher up than you, like, you don't know anything, and they're going to tell you everything you need to know.
It's so true.
Every good person, and you know that they're not a good person, you probably don't want to do business with them, or be that buddy coworker if you ask them for help
Hmm.
and they don't help you. But
Right.
any good, like, leader, especially if you say, hey, I don't know, I'm new here, walk me through the process, or tell me how you handle this and that, they will tell you everything you need to know, and then they'll tell you their whole life story. And then once you know the whole
Yes.
life story, you're locked in. You ask about the, like, note taking right here, people 101. If you want to advance in your business career, ask the person that you work with about their life, and ask about their
Hmm.
life afterwards. They will tell you
Yes.
everything you need to know. They will be like, hey, don't use that printer don't work. They will tell you that client, they gave you that client's a pain in the butt, but they like their cats, so maybe ask about the cats. Like,
Right.
that that's it. Be a novice. Ask for help. Ask people about their own personal lives, because we all are doing our business life for our personal life.
Right.
And when you make that correlation, like, oh, this person is my boss because she's got 3 kids and a
Mm-hmm.
husband, then you're able to make that people connection with them, and you're able to help advance your career based off of people versus just solely putting all your life into this work aspect that may
Mm-hmm.
deplete you from your own personal life.
Wow. Ah,
Yeah. I
amazing
was like, I have to
advice.
make
And
sure that gem gets in there. I was like, wait, people,
yes,
people, people, people. They're very important. People are
it
important.
it is very important. People are important. And I'm happy that you've said that, because I think that's one thing I used to admire so much, especially my parents' generation. They needed people to do anything, like be it asking for help, registering a car, like whatever, that people were their resource. And sometimes, like in the age of Google and social media, we can forget that we can still connect with human beings. And especially like that generation, if you ask them any question, they'll be so happy to chat with you. Like, tell you
Yeah.
everything. So hopefully we can bring back the importance of like people. I know our society is highly individualistic, but I'm hoping that we can come to a time where, it's okay to ask, talk with people, communicate. And I think that will also help in terms of like mental health. Cause like even just seeing you like glow as you're talking to people, kind of refill yourself in creative spaces that also involve other people. I'm seeing that, sometimes it could just be you need a hug. You need
Yes.
to talk to people. You need to
Sometimes you need to
communicate.
touch some grass, go for a walk, and say hi to somebody.
That's
Because I'm
it.
telling you, the best days are when I just say hi to somebody and I get a random conversation I didn't anticipate I was going to have. And I'm like,
Yes.
wow, bye, Stacy, with her 2 dogs and a cat and a llama. Like, I didn't need to know that you had a llama, but I'm so glad that you told me. And now I know this forever. But yeah, it helps. I think that making a priority in our lives, both personal and professionally, to connect
Hmm.
with people just helps us come back to ourselves and feel like
Right.
we're connected to our own skin, because it can be so easy within especially like corporate business aspects, especially like for
Hmm.
me,
Hmm.
real estate mortgage is it's a very high money business.
Right.
So it can be very easy to like see people as a dollar sign. And I have had to catch myself. I've had to catch myself. Sometimes I'm like, man, the client that I lost, I said, man, that's X amount of dollars. And I'm like, that was a person, Tati. That wasn't X amount of dollars. That was a person who felt the way that they feel, that lives their life, that wakes up every single day and has their experiences. You can't see people as just money, as just a monetary thing. You got to see them as the people that they actually are. That helps you connect with them better. That helps for those who want to get into sales. When you see people as people, it helps you sell them. It helps you actually give them what they need so that they're making a confident decision to do business with you versus there's people who scam. There's people who have ill intentions, and um, making that connection helps you differentiate yourself from those people who don't have the right intentions when it comes to their business.
Ah, so many great gems. I could literally continue this conversation forever, but we've come to the end. I'll have to bring you back for a future episode, because honestly, you dropped so many gems, and I think so many people are going to feel so much better after watching this. But before you go, I have questions that I ask everybody at the end of every podcast. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. So the first question is, what was a struggle bus moment for you?
What was a struggle bus moment for me?
Mhm.
What was a struggle bus moment for me? I would say a struggle bus moment for me was actually a period of time when I left the mortgage company I was working with, and
Mhm.
getting prepared to start up as a fully self-employed loan officer.
Mhm.
It was right. I was leaving the company right after my birthday.
Oh.
So at the end of that month, and I didn't have the plan set in place just yet about the next company that we were going to work with. So it was a few months of just having to figure it out, but also stay calm enough to where I didn't allow that to impact my ability to pick back up exactly where I left off. I still had clients, I
Right.
still had people who wanted to do business with me. It was just that intermission period that just felt like a drain. It was like
Yeah.
every little thing. My license had to get switched from one format to another, and it was like, seriously. And everything obviously ended up working out, but that was definitely like that
Right.
struggle bus moment of just little delays that held up me being able to continue to do my business the way that I wanted to.
Got it. I'm happy you made it through though and kind of
Yes.
kept with it. The next
Yeah.
question is, what moment were you most proud of yourself as it relates to your profession?
Wow. I think the most proud moment was definitely getting my mortgage license and taking
I
the
love
mortgage
that.
exam. Um, one side note, I guess, is that when it comes to the actual real estate and mortgage exams, they ask a lot of questions that don't actually pertain to the everyday workings of the industry. So
Really?
it was one of those, yeah, it's they a lot of little legal things and a lot of things that like don't
Okay.
actually apply to everybody. And it was like, dang, am I going to like put on the I know everything hat when I take this exam and get the answers that I should be getting right, wrong? But thankfully, passed first try, and I didn't have no issues. Yeah. But it was one of
Congratulations.
those, because when I was taking the actual classes, some things I kind of overlooked. I'm speeding through the
Okay.
questions and I was like, this makes me look like I don't know my business. And being able to like humble myself and it's like, no, answer the
Hmm.
question based on how they're questioning it and the way that they're writing the answers.
Right.
Being able to pass that was definitely one of those like, yes.
And on the first try, congratulations.
And on
It's
the
like,
first try. Yep. Yes.
the next question is, what is your definition of success?
Wow. Definition of success would
Hmm.
be living a life that I love and enjoy living,
I
waking
love
up
that.
and feeling like I am full. Even when I
Mm,
feel like I may be less than, even if I have my self doubts, just waking up and still
mhm,
feeling grateful for the life and the experiences that I do have and the things that I get to grow through. For
mm,
me, that's success, and having good people around me that make me feel loved.
right. I love that. And has that always been your definition?
Um, early 20s, I would say my thought of what success was all monetary.
Okay.
Or I wouldn't even say monetary, superficial.
Got it.
When I have the house, when I have
Hmm.
kids, when I have the husband, when I
Hmm.
have, a multi million dollar business, or when I've made X amount of money, then I'm going to be successful. And over time, I've
Hmm.
realized, hey, worst case, that doesn't happen. So what's gonna make you feel
Hmm.
successful? So if that doesn't happen, then what?
Right.
What do you absolutely need? Because I've definitely seen the stories of people who made the millions or who are very successful
Hmm.
and still not happy within their personal life. And it's made me kind of have a
So
complete
true.
360 shift of the reality that like my personal life is the successful part. The business is what
Yes, it
fuels me
is.
being able to be successful within my personal life.
I love that so, so much. And the final question is, what piece of advice would you give to people who are looking to advance professionally, be it in your space or not?
Okay. What piece of advice would I give to those who want to advance within their profession?
Yes.
Be fearless, ask
Mm,
questions, and take in as much knowledge as you can.
mm,
Knowledge, like we already talked about at the beginning, doesn't just
right.
come from school,
It's
but
true.
find people who are willing to teach you,
Hmm.
learn as much as you can, and don't be afraid to say that you don't know. That will
Yes,
help you get really, really far. Saying that you don't know
it's true.
something, that you'll find it out, asking the right questions to figure it out will definitely get you a lot farther than um, acting like you know the answer and then messing up.
It's so true. Love that advice so much. And I'll co sign the asking questions because growing up, even till now, I'll always be the one asking the most questions for clarity. But then, and you have no shame. But then once you start to know and you're able to kind of like relate to people and succeed in your business, it's like, okay. So I guess asking the right questions is okay.
Mhm.
I love
Yes.
that. Oh, thank you so much for this conversation. I've learned so much, and I really like the piece, especially about how you're able to express yourself creatively and how you're able to kind of have like frameworks for like mental health and business. Because sometimes all we see is the grind, grind, grind stories, but we don't actually hear a lot of like how to kind of like balance and make yourself feel full, as you said, while also working on the career side. So thank you for touching on that. I know so many people will relate to that because a lot of people suffer in silence. Some people don't really have the access or the resources or the funds to be even in therapy. So I thank
Yeah.
you for kind of shedding light on what people can do in the meantime.
I'm glad that I could help with that aspect. Exactly. Yeah. I think when we like we said, it's a lot of to do with people, and when we connect with people, it helps us within our business. And connecting with people includes connecting with yourself. You two are a person that you need to
Yes.
connect with.
Whew, that alone, that needs to be a quote somewhere. I love it. Wow, that was such an amazing, amazing episode. Tati is so smart, so wise, beautiful, an amazing person in and out. We'll send you some of her contact details so you can get in connection with her. Until next time.